John, great to see you again. Last time you were here, I mean, I feel like let's just start. I want Powerball numbers. Give me Powerball numbers. Last time you were here, you're like, there's going to be a strike force. There's going to be a grand jury. And like, boom, boom, boom. It's like, now I want, what should I play the numbers tonight? Because I feel like you were dead on. Let's just, before we get to Adam Schiff, because I got to get into this, give me an update on both. Like, what's going on with the strike force? What's going on with the grand jury?
Yeah, they're just getting started. There is some evidence beginning to be submitted to a grand jury somewhere in Middle America, meaning outside of Washington, D.C. I have not been able to ascertain the location. I've suspected it would be in Florida, but I can't get confirmation yet. But I do understand that some subpoenas have gone out to federal agencies to produce evidence that a grand jury may see. I think that eventually will lead to subpoenas of individual witnesses, and it will grow. But it is following the normal processes that a Justice Department used to follow, let's say, back in the Reagan era when politics weren't involved. Career people make a decision to open a case. Career people say it's big enough to do a strike force. Strike force leads to grand jury. They're following the normal steps. They're not doing the secret hand in Washington, pulling something in the door and doing it their way, like James Comey did, or like what happened early in the Trump administration, where Mueller gets basically invented as a special prosecutor case when there was no, as we now know from John Durham, no predicate even to do that. So they're following the normal steps. I have never won the lottery, so I'm terrible. I'm just the bad of numbers. But I do have a crystal ball about what we probably will be talking about in the next 48 hours. After all the leak stuff that I've done the last few days, and you kind of see two buckets of leaks, you've got Adam Schiff, we'll talk about that, and then James Comey and his sort of personal media consigliere that he puts on the taxpayer's dime to burnish his image. One of the other things that I've always wanted to get to, and I think we have found the Holy Grail documents now, is everybody is focused on Hillary Clinton and the email server. And that's an important story, particularly because it involved classified information being moved through an insecure channel. But I've always believed that the bigger threat to Hillary Clinton was what the FBI was trying to do to look at whether her foundation was basically a backdoor for corruption. A Hunter Biden laundered through a C3 family foundation. In the next 48 hours or so, I think we're going to get to see for the first time just how much political interference FBI agents faced in multiple jurisdictions when they got predicated leads, meaning evidence that warranted criminal investigation. That's what a predicate is. Concerning the Clinton Foundation. We're probably going to be able to name the names of people who ordered these investigations shut down, even though the FBI manual, the U.S. Attorney's manual, suggested those investigations should proceed until determinations were made about criminality. I think this is the big Hillary scandal that has sort of skated below the radar, and I think it's going to be, in the next few weeks, a very parallel story to what happened to Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden, the FBI, the IRS, everybody knew he had a problem and nobody could get the permission to go and do the case right until these whistleblowers came forward with us 2 years ago. I think similarly, you're going to see that there was a protection racket around Hillary Clinton, not just on the email. We know what James Comey did with his magic FBI wand. He wasn't allowed to do it, but he did it. He cleared her in the FBI in the emails case. But you're going to see a protection racket around the Clinton Foundation, and you're going to be able to see who in government was providing that protection. I think that's a very important moment for all of us to digest.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing this correct. That we knew that there was some nefarious stuff, some shady things surrounding the Clinton Foundation. But according to what you believe is about to happen, we are going to find out that certain individuals called off the dogs and said, do not look into this any further?
Yeah, I think you'll see words to the effect of shut it down. We're not going there, things like that. And what's interesting to me, and again, I'm still doing the work, but it looks like there were 2 or 3 separate FBI offices or 2 or 3 separate investigations in multiple jurisdictions into various allegations of pay to play. Again, the Clintons should be presumed innocent. That's something the Democrats never did for Donald Trump. But the fact that the FBI had enough information to open up an investigation during the 2015-16 timeframe when she's moving from Secretary of State to presidential nominee is significant news. And if there are political players hovering above the career apparatus that were interfering, obstructing, ordering a shutdown, I think that's going to be a really important piece of this story. We believe the cycle, Sean, like we talked about last time, is Democrat has a problem. Hillary Clinton with the foundation, Hillary Clinton with the email. They wave that off, they protect that person, and they project a fake scandal on Donald Trump called Russia collusion. Joe Biden in 2019, when I write the first stories that the Hill has a problem with Hunter Biden in Ukraine and Russia and China, and they launched the fake Ukraine impeachment scandal. In 21, Joe Biden has classified documents found in his home garage and his UPenn office, and they start a criminal investigation of Donald Trump for having documents he very likely might have been allowed to have. You see this wash, rinse, repeat cycle. I think the part that's been missing in the Clinton to Russia collusion scandal is how much further along the FBI was at looking at the foundation as a possible criminal enterprise. Again, no one was ever charged, but the fact that they were looking at it and got shut down before their work was done, I think is going to fit this pattern that may be at the heart of the conspiracy case right now.
Sorry to jump in on this video, but if you're thinking about a great dinner, I've got the perfect solution for you. Riverbend Ranch steaks. They are absolutely amazing. You cannot get these in grocery stores. And frankly, they're better than anything you can get in a steakhouse. Go to riverbendranch.com. Use code Sean for $20 off your first order. riverbendranch.com. For your first order, use code Sean. And by the way, the hot dogs, the beef jerky, everything else is phenomenal. From the ranch to your table, riverbendranch.com, use code Sean. So my guess is that if FBI launches an investigation looking into somebody, it would take somebody very senior, either in the FBI or higher up in the Department of Justice, to say, stop.
Yeah. My guess is it comes somewhere near the director's level at the Bureau or the Attorney General's level at the Attorney General. Now, I want to wait and see what the evidence comes in. But typically, in the times we have seen sort of political meddling in cases, an AG or a FBI director is involved, and often their deputies get tasked to do the hard work, right? Hey, guys, I'm bringing you a message from the director, from the AG, you're shutting this down. Let's see if it follows that pattern. That is a pattern that has happened in earlier political meddling in the Justice Department all the way back to the 70s when, in Watergate, you had John Mitchell, the Attorney General, trying to stop the FBI from investigating Watergate. You had high-up officials in the CIA trying to hide evidence or to scare off the FBI from doing its job. Let's see if it rises to that level. I mean, in Nixon, it was the Attorney General. Let's see where it goes. But there's a history of this, and let's see if it follows that pattern.
So as you're saying this, though, I'm putting this into my own head right now. So let's just say this is all true. If you think that Comey, I don't know how the director of the FBI wouldn't know, whether he's complicit or not. He would have to know that his agency was being told to do something or stop doing something. And then months later tells Donald Trump, hey, by the way, there's this annex. As I've told you, I was one of a handful of people in that room that day when Comey interacts for the first time. And by the way, John, I've said this to other folks, Donald Trump wasn't a politician, right? So the first interaction he ever has with the FBI director is in a meeting where the FBI director says, why don't we go to the corner of the room because I have something to share with you privately. And subsequently, everyone says, I can't believe Donald Trump thought you could have these one-offs with the FBI director, to which my answer has always been, why wouldn't he think that? That's how it all started, and it was initiated by Comey. But getting back to this for a second, Comey at some point had to know either he was directing or he knew who was directing if any of this plays out. It then leads me to believe, to your point about the pattern, that all of these things that he's doing, don't hire Mike Flynn, there's an Annex A, here's what I'm doing. He talks openly in interviews about sending FBI agents over to the White House because, quote, why not? So if this is true, doesn't this, then Comey is really, this isn't just a pattern. Anyone who's watched Law and Order is going, this seems like this guy was setting the guy up.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's no better evidence of that than the January 5th, 2017 meeting with Barack Obama and James Comey, and I think Sally Yates and others are in that meeting, if I remember correctly. And the FBI just the day before, had decided to close down its investigation of Mike Flynn. They found no evidence of wrongdoing. There was no further reason. They wanted to create a closed memo, and then Pete Strzok says, hold off, don't do that yet. And they have a meeting at the White House. And what is that? Oh, Joe Biden's in that meeting too. What are they talking about? How can we maybe get keep this investigation going? Maybe we look at the Logan Act. Maybe we lure him into an interview. And one of the top FBI agents in that room, the assistant director for counterintelligence for the FBI at the time, Bill Priestap, comes out of that meeting and writes, I think, one of the most damning, most extraordinary notes in all of the scandal annals of history in Washington. And that is, what was our goal today? Was it to find the truth or to try to lure an innocent man into lying so we could charge him with something? He walked away with a meeting from the president and his top team thinking, I just witnessed an effort to set up an innocent man. And he writes that into his notes. Those notes are now, I think, when you look at the pattern, perhaps the summary of what was really going on, making innocent people go through a process to make them look like they were guilty for political gain. And I think that is probably what we're going to see. It's the reverse of Watergate. Watergate was Nixon ordered a break-in, tried to cover it up, or at least there was a break-in, he tried to cover it up. In here, there's no crime, but they want to make it look like Donald Trump and his team are full of crimes. And that is a very, very troubling change in the way our government has worked over the years. Last week, Harmeet Dillon came on the show. She's the civil rights chief for the FBI. And she said, based on what she's seeing, and she's not going to talk about specific cases, but there's a very good chance that what the FBI is going to look at and the Justice Department is going to look at is that this process, this clear Hillary and put a fake scandal on the Trump people, may have been a deprivation of civil rights and civil liberties under color of authority. The last time we saw those sort of prosecutions would have been during the Jim Crow era in the 60s and maybe Rodney King in 93. Of course, in those cases, force was used. Here, we're using the machinations of intelligence to put people through a punishing multi-million-dollar process for crimes they never committed.
I'm desperate to get to this Adam Schiff thing, but there's a couple things that you've brought up that I want to get to.
Sure.
Based on what you just said, Is General Mike Flynn owed an apology? Or, I mean, I think about all the meetings that people had in the last couple transitions with foreign figures. Like, is he owed an apology? Is he actually guilty of anything?
Listen, he pled guilty to something, and you don't ever get to walk away from that. I know he's been pardoned, so at this point he's not guilty of anything. That's been erased or expunged.
But he pled guilty to lying to the FBI. And knowing what we know now about how the FBI acted, I mean, look, John, you've covered this way more than anybody else. John, you've covered all this stuff. And I know from talking to everyone from Alan Dershowitz to whatever, when the full force of the Department of Justice comes down on you and says, well, John Solomon, I tell you what, you either plead to this because we got you did lie, or we're going to destroy your entire life, John Solomon. We're going to bankrupt you, your kids, your wife, your family, your dog. We're coming after you. Or you can plead guilty to this misdemeanor and, what do you want to do?
So all the things that you mentioned are exactly what Mike Flynn did. I've always tried to stay out of the category of expressing an opinion about what's owed. I can tell you that the way Mike Flynn was treated violates the Bureau's Domestic Intelligence and Operations Guide. It violated the U.S. Attorney's rules. You don't set up a innocent man for an interview he's not supposed to be interviewed for in hopes that you lure him into a false statement so you can charge him, which is what the notes from Priestap suggest was the motive of the president. I've always wondered if Bill Priestap would go before a grand jury. I don't know of any instance he did. I don't get a sense that he cooperated with the Durham investigation when you read the report. But if I'm the special prosecutor or the strike force team leader, I'm thinking those notes are going to make me compel Bill Priestap to testify about what he witnessed in that meeting. In there, most Americans I've seen, and I think the polling shows that most Americans think Mike Flynn was treated wrongly and badly. And I'm reminded of an interview I did a couple of years ago with an FBI whistleblower. He said, John, the end goal wasn't necessarily to get someone convicted. The process itself was the punishment, meaning if you can drain millions of dollars from someone, if you could sully their reputation, if you could get them to resign, it didn't really matter whether you convicted him. You had already achieved your political means under the color of government authority. And I do think that Mike Flynn falls into a category of someone who went through exactly that process.
I agree. The more I know, I'm like, boy, did that guy get screwed. All right, before I get to Schiff, one last thing that I need your take on. Roger Stone tweeted out, we mentioned Comey,
Yep.
there's Brennan. And Roger Stone tweeted out that he believes that Brennan is taking cover in Austria, and that MSNBC has actually set up a studio so he can do hits and not appear as he gone, but that he fled the country. You've got better sources than anybody. Do you have anybody sharing this view that John Brennan has left the country, whether it's Austria or somewhere else?
Well, I will say it's ironic that Austria is mentioned, and I think I've seen a remote appearance for him by then, because that is where some of the oligarchs have fled. Perhaps the most famous is a Russian oligarch who has fought a 10-year case and been able to stay in Austria. Right now, the Austrian government has a conservative government. We do have an extradition treaty with them. I'm not sure it's the place you would flee if you were trying to flee thing. It could just be he's on summer vacation. A lot of people go to Austria in August. I don't have any personal reason to think he's on the lam or even has reason to be on the lam yet. I don't think they're that far down the path in the investigation. But we'll keep a close eye on it. Provocateurs often provoke discussion, and I'm sure that's what Roger Stone was. But I don't have any direct evidence that he's on the lam or the U.S. government thinks he's on the lam from them. And Austria would not be the place to go. We do have an extradition treaty.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.